Let the dragon consume you! Enemy sighted. Stop the payload! Stop the payload! In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Birdwatcher's back at it one more time. Here's your host, Ryan and Clay. They're about to bring you some sweet Overwatch action.
And we're back. Hey, welcome back to this episode of the Birdwatchers. It's episode 50. I know, right? Gosh, 50 episodes. It feels like it was just yesterday. No, it doesn't. It has been a long time. I can't believe we've done 50 episodes at this point. I guess doing weekly definitely creeps up on you. But yeah, I know we're not doing anything special this week. We're doing stage 3, week 3. But as I promised, I'll probably do something special. I don't know, maybe in between this one and the next one. Probably take a look at some contenders or something. Probably do like a 0.5 episode. We'll play around with the format and see what we can come up with. But for today, we're going to keep it simple for episode 50. So I'll give you a nice short episode. And this is mainly because there really isn't any news. I mean, the biggest news I want to talk about is obviously that Atlanta Homestand is around the corner. Players are in town. People are in town getting ready for that. The players have been doing events with like Cox, trying to get some hype around it for the final rush to Homestand. Everybody's preparing signs. They announced the huge cosplay contest. There's a lot going on. Plenty to prepare for. So this is kind of like this upcoming week is a week to just chill out. We don't have any games naturally since we're playing 2 at the Homestand, and other teams have been excused from that as well since they're going to be playing at the Homestand for that setup. So yeah, no big news outside of that. So if you haven't gotten your Homestand tickets, I'm guessing you aren't planning on going, because at this point it's kind of a bum rush to get them. I know like 2 days are pretty much sold out. The 1 days are the ones you can get, so good luck trying to get the same seats back to back. But regardless, there's gonna be a bunch of after parties throughout that weekend. We'll be handling an after party, and we'll have those details for you. And once those are all set up, I'll give you those as well. But yeah, so let's just hop into standings for stage 3, week 3. Not that much surprising in the beginning of the week. The end of the week, those last 2 days is where things kind of picked up, and all the hype started, and all the viewership kind of picked up as well, because there was some surprising outcomes. But to start off, we start off on Thursday as always. We start off with San Francisco versus Boston Uprising. No surprise here. San Francisco takes this 4-0. Uprising has been struggling, and they take advantage of that. Then we have Paris Eternal versus Houston Outlaws. Outlaws have kind of turned around, but so have Eternal in a way. But Outlaws come out on top here, 3-1. We then have Spark versus Fuel. Fuel, another team that's struggling. Spark looking surprisingly good, not just in the stage, this stage, last stage, and overall. They're still at the top of the bracket, taking this 3-0 over Fuel. We then go into Dragons versus Valiant. Valiant have kind of turned it around. This is a team that started out 0-7 to much dismay. They actually take it 3-1 here against Dragons team that is, again, up there as far as, best teams in the league at the moment. This moves us into Friday, where we have New York Excelsior barely taking it over Spitfire 3-2. Spitfire's gotten their act together. Excelsior's still been performing as they do. They haven't fallen off too hard. Then we go into Shock versus Mayhem. Shock taking this 4-0, followed by Gladiators versus Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai getting the win here in their second game of the week, 3-1 over Gladiators. Then we move into Chengdu Hunters versus Vancouver Titans. The Titans are, the Titans. They beat up on Hunters here, taking it 3-1. We then have Spitfire versus Justice. Justice, although looking better than they've been in the past, still not good enough, right? 2-1 here for Spitfire for Justice. And then Atlanta Reign versus Fusion. Oh, man, I tell you. Fusion get this 3-2. So yet another game 5. We've become the team that likes to go to game 5, but we are also the worst team at winning game 5s. So we need to turn things around. We need to stop pushing it that far and just end games. We get up to 2-0, 2-1 a lot of the time, and then we kind of fall back or fall apart or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully the team can figure that one out. Then we have Defiant versus Charge. Defiant, shifting some things as far as, bringing on gods, going for a multicultural team, and preparing themselves, it looks like, for the next season. But they do lose to Charge here, 4-0. And then we have Spark versus Dynasty. Dynasty's been looking better with their 2-team approach, their Team A, Team B, which has gotten a lot of, I don't want to say press, but a lot of talk amongst the community as if it's a viable strategy, because it does give you a lot of cool looks. And this is a game I would recommend you watch because there is barely any strict goats for any long stretch of time. They try a lot of things in this game, and Spark is a team that can also play things outside of that goats comp. This one's a great one to watch. 3-2 for Spark over Dynasty here. And this takes us into Sunday, where we have a lot of upsets, right? So we have the 4-0 Hunters over Fuel here, which is not something I expected, even though Fuel's struggling. We then have Uprising taking it over Paris Eternal, once again in that realm of teams that are struggling. 3-2 for Uprising here. And then we're going to go into the 2 matches we're going to talk about, which is the Houston Outlaws versus Florida Mayhem and Los Angeles Valiant versus Vancouver Titans. So let's not waste any time. Let's hop straight into it, starting with the Mayhem versus Outlaws. So, Mayhem, a team that has had a shuffle of coaches and players and all types of shenanigans. Outlaws, a team that's been trying to figure out how to use the pieces they already have properly and find that right mix, and then also find the mix of the comp. Known as a team that always chases the meta versus figuring out where they fit within it. But it seems like they're starting to solve that puzzle that they usually struggle with. So, as usual, we start with our control map here on Ruins, and Outlaws choose triple DPS, a good choice here outside of the goats comp, and they give Mayhem hell since Mayhem chooses to go goats and have no way to deal with all of Jake's damage. His Far has looked very impressive, and I don't know if that's because, he has looked impressive on Far in the past. He's a Junkrat player. It kind of fits the mold, but because we don't see that many Faras in this day and age, I wonder if it's even more impressive, but he is shelling out a lot of damage. So Outlaws do take this round easily. This takes us to well, and Mayhem do adjust here, playing triple DPS as well as putting up, about 50% before Linkser gets his Widow warmed up and starts to rain down hell on them. And Outlaws adjust as well. The rest of the team adjust, and Mayhem then default back to this dive goats comp. But what that does is it leaves an opening for Jake to deal a ton of damage, and he continues to play well. And Outlaws have just been performing well on well. I know I said that. They've been performing on well. Very good. They do great there, so they continue that, and Outlaws take this second round and the map, and this takes us to our second map. So Outlaws are up 1-0 here. This takes us to our second map, which is Paris, and Outlaws start on attack. They get a quick 0.1, then they lose about 2 fights with their triple DPS comp and decide to shift into Somber Goats, and they immediately begin to struggle in this mirror match, but they are able to cap with only a few seconds remaining. Mayhem then go next on attack, and Mayhem start with a ball and chain double sniper comp, which is something, we don't see often, especially in this current day and age of Overwatch. They get a quick 0.1 and 2 without much resistance. Outlaws aren't really prepared for it, and it was definitely surprising to see that. Round 2, because we get forced into round 2, Outlaws go first since they have the least amount of time. They only have about a minute in their time bank for this attempt. And the attempt this triple flank comp to help displace bunker comp, which is a good, change of pace. It's a good thing to try. The problem is that once they get a pick or two, they're not really able to clean up the kills and get, end up getting held to about 75% of the 0.1. And also they don't have a lot of time. So that plays into that factor as well. Mayhem then go next, and they use that same ball and chain double sniper comp, which is a cool comp, and it's fun to watch. And they end up capping and tying the series 1-1. And it's pretty straightforward. I mean, what you do is you pressure with angles, and then when your halt hook combos up, you halt them into the air so that sniper's get a clear shot, and then if not, you get the hook as well, where that delay of the hook pulling the person to hog also gives them an opportunity to shoot, or hog's just going to one-shot them depending on the character's health. So this takes us into Hollywood, and this is our map of the match. Mayhem start on attack here, and Mayhem start with this Protect the President comp, which we saw early on in the beginning of the season, and they started to fade off. But as you know, Saya player is a player on Mayhem, and his McCree is insane. So they're able to cap point 1 with this Protect the President comp, and then he goes Super Saya by switching to Widow and goes absolutely insane. We all know he's a good Widow, right? He's a Widow god. He's one of the best, if not the best, when he gets the chance to play it, or there's room in the meta for him to play that Widow. But seeing his performance here is still amazing. They do a couple replays, and from the moment he swaps in the city up to the end of the map, he has some plays that are just super clutch, and it looks like he doesn't break a sweat. Mayhem are able to full cap with about 30 seconds remaining on this attempt. Then we move to Outlaws and attack, and the majority of this attempt is a Sombra Goat's Mirror, which is something we've seen a lot. Usually decided by the EMPs, right? And who gets to jump on who. And this burns a lot of the Outlaws' time bank. But this is ultimately ends in a final fight. One step from point 3 that ends up going in Mayhem's favor. With a great hold here, they take this map, and this puts them up 2-1 in the series, and then moves us to our fourth map, which is Gibraltar. So Mayhem start an attack on Gibraltar, and this engagement is a goats battle. And Mayhem progressed through point 1 and 2 fairly easily before getting stalled near point 3, unable to kind of get that full cap, taking us to Outlaws on attack. And Outlaws have a tough time throughout this whole push, but they're able to keep the cart slowly moving until in overtime, right in they stopped Mayhem, and right at that point where they're about to cap and win it, Zephyr has a clutch swap off of tank onto a bastion and surprises Outlaws, gets a great position to hold down the fort, and Florida's able to hold it for the win. And also to note, Uber's commentary throughout this engagement and even leading up to this has been impressive. This is like him at his peak, right? And it's always great to hear and see these big plays. He definitely adds an essence to these big moments that we need as a sport to get people hype and to get people in it. But yeah, we have the Mayhem with the upset here. No one thought they were going to beat this revamped Outlaws. Obviously, sometimes people jump to conclusions with, okay, well, how good are the Outlaws now that they're not sitting so heavily on the goats or trying to fit into it, and they're playing this far. They're playing these triple DPS. They're playing the 2-2-2. They're playing things to give them advantage. But there are moments here against the Mayhem where they get forced into the goats safety net, and sometimes they just get beat out on it. And like I said, Mayhem, a team that has shuffled, has players that can play things outside of goats, so that even that's dangerous compared to using goats against goats heavy teams like Paris, Titans, X, Y, and Z. So this takes us to our second match we're going to talk about today, and one everybody's been talking about. So if you already know what happened, I'm not surprised. It was all over. I think there was a point where I was kind of dozing off and, just relaxing. And I turned it on and I look at the score and I'm like, wait, what's happening? And then I watched the remainder of this match and I was like, okay, this is going to, everybody on Twitter and Reddit were going mad, but let's hop into it. So we start off with our control map, which is Oasis. And we start with City Center. And Valiant start with triple DPS while Titans use a Soldier Goats comp. We don't see much Soldier Goats, right? We see Protect from the Kree, we see the Sombra Goats, sometimes you'll see MA, things like that, or even now you're starting to see the Hanzo for breaking up shields, but Soldiers not so much. But here it makes sense on City Center because of that elevation point you can command, and doing so allows Titans about halfway through to regain control and take this round from Valiant, because Valiant was doing very well here. And then Garden is our next round, and once again we get triple DPS from the Valiant and Sombra Goats this time from Titans, and it's a back and forth brawl throughout. This is actually a great match to start off because both teams are playing like they want it, which is why I actually made this the map of the match, which doesn't happen often on the first control map because it's usually dominant. But Titans do end up winning the final engagement to decide who wins this, and they end up taking this map. So they go up 1-0. Our next map in the rotation is Paris, and Titans start on attack, and Titans try 2-2-2 with a Genji Sombra. So not something I expected out of this team, having so much success with their GOATs up to this point. I mean, just look at their record, and it feels weird to see it. But, this attempt kind of burns a majority of their time bank. Haksaw's not doing great on Genji. He's not building blade fast enough. He's not really engaging much. It's more of movement and juking around, not really moving towards the objective. And they're able to, they struggle because another part of them struggling is that Valiants are using this unorthodox triple DPS comp that has Sombra, Junk, and Widow, and then Orisa's the main tank. I can't explain to you why. I don't know. Hopefully we get to see more of it because, you always like to see, as the commentators mentioned, Valiant isn't a team that ever defines the meta, right? They're sort of like Outlaws where they just adjust to, and usually they adjust late to what's going on. But it's cool to see them play this here, and it's cool to see it play out. But yeah, that gives Titans a lot of trouble on point one. For their last attempt in overtime, they actually swapped to GOATs, and that allows them to cap point one. But then Valiant adjusts to Sombra GOATs and hold them on point two due to the exhausted time bank. Valiant then go on attack next, and they use the triple DPS again that we saw before, and they get a quick point one. Up until the point where they're about to snowball on a point two until Janu has a huge 4K Diva Bomb that stalls that momentum. So, since they have a huge time bank, they're able to grind it out the old fashioned way, and they finally do get the cap to take this map, making it 1-1. This then takes us into Eichenwald, and Valiant start with attack. So Valiant use Sombra GOATs to get a quick point one, and even though Titans adjust to the mirror to mirror this comp, Valiant keep that momentum they built up through point 2 and 3, and then they cap with plenty of time left for Eichenwald. We then get Titans on attack here. And most of this attempt is a Sombra GOATs mirror, and Valiant seem to have the better grasp of this comp than Titans. We know Titans in traditional GOATs, no one can stand up to that. Heads up, right? But this isn't that. Sombra has kind of changed the whole situation now that more teams are using it. And they don't seem to, like, Summon Su on his Sombra just seems mediocre at best. The timing seems off, and there is a point where, they try Zenyatta versus the Ana, and they swap again. They're not really, it seems like they're still trying to adjust to how they need to use it for themselves. I guarantee that's something they'll be practicing as they move forward, since it's becoming more prevalent. But Titans struggle throughout this, and then they get held one step from point 3. This is actually a really good map to watch as well, and this puts the Valiant up 2-1, taking us to Dorado for match point. Valiant start an attack, and once again, Valiant show their dominance in this Sombra GOATs mirror, and after about a brief stall on point 1, they win every fight until they cap with about 153. They just kind of roll through without much issue and resistance. This takes us to Titans on attack, and Titans actually come out with a 2-2-2 again. Like I said, surprising. They come out with Pharah Sombra, and this change almost, this change is smart because, not adjusting to the Sombra or the Pharah, you get a lot of damage in. We've seen Outlaws do this with Jake lately. But lo and behold, Kareev on Ana is completely dealing with Pharah consistently and constantly giving her trouble. Sleeps, just tagging her out of the air himself. It's very impressive that they didn't have to swap because of Kareev's performance here. And it's kind of, a one-up to all the Anas out there to say, hey, maybe you don't have to swap to deal with the Pharah when playing GOATs. If your Ana's up to snuff, she can probably do it herself. It's some huge plays here that definitely sway this and burn a bunch of the Titans' time. Valiant able to hold the Titans on point 2. They put the first official loss on their record. They have lost in stage playoffs, but those don't count towards records, if you remember. And it's a hell of a performance from the Valiant. So crowd goes crazy. I mean, they're in their hometown or close to it in Cali, and the crowd goes crazy. Valiant, I mean, it's their first loss. People can say what they want to say. I don't think anybody's saying anything reckless. They're a great team. They're pretty much the only team that's locked for the real playoffs at the end. That's how much winning they've been doing. They would have to go on a terrible streak to break. I don't think they can throw this one away unless you have a bunch of weird things happen within the middle and top of the bracket. But yeah, Valiant, hell of a step up. I mean, big teams are big performances from teams that need it lately. So Valiant, Outlaws, Mayhem. The list goes on. So it's good to see that middle. We actually have a beautiful bell curve now of teams that, are at the bottom and teams that are in this middle. And we're getting a lot of very close, good games, regardless of who's playing. So that's good to see now, right? So that's kind of it. It's a short episode for episode 50. Like I said, we're probably going to try to do something with contenders in this gap area. I really want to look at Clockwork Vendetta and what they've been doing with them mixing up contenders right now in Europe. So I'm probably going to check them out, and then we'll probably do like a short 0.5 episode and see if you guys like that. Let me know. And as usual, you can reach us at Gmail at thebirdwatcherspodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter and Reddit. We're our most active. Twitter is at podcast TBW, so follow us on there. And let me know what's up. Link us some stuff. And then on Reddit, I'm also very active on Reddit at the Birdwatchers Podcast. You'll see us around there commenting on whatever. And then if you like to listen on YouTube, if you have YouTube Premium, we're the Birdwatchers on there. And then there's Facebook and Instagram, we're the Birdwatchers and Birdwatchers Podcast, if you use those. But yeah, as usual, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
I have destroyed more of your kind than I can count.
Toss them around like trash.
I don't take lessons from you.
Try not to get us killed.